seem to fall to the floor.
Hello, welcome back to another pen talk, and this time we're going to talk about pens and not just inks. So these are two pens that I got motivated to put together a video because they share a common nib characteristic. This is the Hero 360. You may recognize it from another fellow video reviewer, Wasky Squirrel. Jason sent me the pen over the summertime. He sent me a few pens. We traded pens, so it's the first review I've done of a pen that I haven't actually purchased, but it wasn't a pen that was provided to me for the sake of a review. So that pen got me motivated to look at this other Parker pen here, which is a Parker 180. These are two different price points. This pen, when it was sold, was originally $40 in 1977. The pen was made from 76 through 85, so it had a short lifespan, you know, as pens go. The pen was designed, according to Richard Binder and a few other people, because Parker was concerned with their nibs on their 45s and 61s and 51s being bent by ballpoint users that felt they had to put a lot of pressure on a pen to get it to write, and that pressure exceeded what the nib was able to handle. And considering those hooded nibs are pretty indestructible from my viewpoint, that was a lot of pressure. So let's take a look at what really makes these pens in the same review. The caps just snap off. The Hero one is a lot more difficult to take off. It comes right across, but now we see the nibs, and they are inked up, as you can see the ink on my hand. So the Parker is called a 180 and the Hero is called a 360, and the names are apt because the Parker nib allows you to write on either side. And if you look around here at the feed, you'll see it says XM for extra fine and medium. The Hero is a consistent writer no matter what angle you write. So any way around a 360-degree angle, the nib performs well. Both sections are very narrow, a little bit on the small side for me. I find the Parker a little bit more comfortable to use. Lengthwise, they're pretty close to the same length, and it's in the hand, it's definitely on the small side, but it's usable, and they both post well. So let's take a look at these a little bit closer and then do a writing sample. So hopefully this close-up is coming across and showing you kind of the space-age design. This was considered a very modern-looking space-aged pen when it was released by Parker. You have a metal support here and a more traditional feed on the other side. As you can see, the nib is slightly concave. This is the underside of the nib if you would look at it that way, and this certainly looks like the top side of the nib. When you write with it in this way, it's a medium line, and when you turn it around, it becomes a fine line. And obviously with that support, you're not going to get any flex out of this, but in this way, the nib actually has a nice little feel to it. So looking closely at the Hero nib, you'll see there's a slit there that the two nibs are put together, and there's a little bit of tipping material on it, and there's also your normal slit, and the feed is the same on both sides. So basically 360 is a good determination for this, is because it is symmetrical all over, and is designed to write from any angle. So this would work hopefully well with left-handers as well as right-handers or anything else. Overall, both of these pens are a little bit thin, a little bit small for my tastes. That section is about as small as you can get and still be functional. You know, the section is much different in shape and size than the Parker one, and I think the Parker one is at least a little bit more comfortable because you can hold the pen in many different places. The finish on both pens is interesting. Obviously it's just a painted finish on the Hero. Let's put caps on these, and That snaps in place really nicely on the Hero, and as with a lot of the Heroes, the designation is at the bottom of the cap. And what's interesting is the clip does have some arrow design. There is a lot of artistic liberty, repetition taken with the two designs. There's a little bit of a nice logo on the top, but nothing on the Parker. The Parker snaps in place, but the clip is fairly loose, so this turns relatively easily. Straight barrels for both of them. The bottom of the barrel on the Parker has a little bit of an issue. It looks like there was a piece of metal there that may have been supposedly in the middle or glued in place. And again, on the Hero, you have a nice little logo there at the end. Overall, both pens are very light. I'll give you those weights. So I guess the next thing to really do is to put these nib to paper and see how they perform. The ink we're going to be using is KWZ Brown number 4. Those of you that have seen my review on the KWZ inks are familiar with the ink a little bit. I felt it just went well with these pens, and it's an ink that I want to get more experienced with. And I figured these two nibs would be a nice way of seeing how the ink works in some different types of nibs. A little bit of a hard start at the beginning, but I think this has been uncapped for a while. So basically, I would say it's on the fine to fine medium as far as the nib goes. And like I said, you can hold the nib at any angle and it writes fine. When Jason did his review, he just turned the nib 360 as he moved it across the paper, and as you can see, the line stays constant. There's nothing to write home, but it is a consistent writer. You know, for some people, that's what they like. It's something you could easily start writing with, you know, just uncap it and start writing. I've had ink it for a little bit, different types of inks, and, you know, it holds up pretty well. This nib is a nail. You're not going to get any flex out of it, but that's not what it's designed for. But as you pressure it, you know, you get a little bit more ink flow. But that's certainly not what it was designed to do. So let's compare that to the Parker. As you can see on the end of the cap, there's a little bit of a wear spot from capping because it clicks in place and it caps very deeply. So it's really not that much bigger in the hand posted than it is unposted. So I'm starting with the medium side. And as you can see, it puts down a nice line. It's a little bit of a wider line than the Hero did, but that's kind of what you would expect because the Asian pens are generally a little bit narrower for the same thing, and the nib has a little bit of spring to it. Flipping it over to do the fine side, this is a very fine line. It is not something I enjoy writing with. As you can see, the flow is a little bit inconsistent. I've worked on this nib. It's hard to gather exactly what you need to do to get it to write consistently. Originally, I thought it may have had like a little bit of a baby's bottom to it. Seems to be a little bit more, see, it'll just do it. So I don't think it really works on both sides, but the medium side is nice. Other than the pen being very skinny, and it's a nice writer. As you can see, the line is a little bit darker than the line from the Hero. So you can tell it's putting down more ink. And KWZ inks are definitely very saturated, so you put down a lot of ink. That's why I thought that the fine writing would work, but it's just not usable from my perspective. So, you know, I guess if you needed a really fine line, you might find that usable, but I don't. So that's a look at two pens. unique pens that you may not experience. The 180 is pretty available on eBay. So I'll post some of those auctions so you can take a look at them. You know, if you're interested in something unique and you can pick it up for a good price, that might work out. You know, around the same time or a little bit in that era, Parker came out. You know, they had Parker 61 first and then the 45. And as you can see, it's a similar design. They got thinner and thinner as time went on. In case it wasn't apparent how thin the Parker 180 is, here's a TWSBI 580 and your Lamy Safari, and it's thin. You know, the length is okay, but you might call it, you know, more for dainty hands, the small hands. But you know, it writes nicely, and I think it's an interesting pen to have in my collection. So with that, we'll close off. So we're going to write on the medium side. So thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this little look at an interesting pen. Hopefully you have interesting writing experiences. Ciao.